everyone, and thanks for joining us at Pandora's Books and Tea for our June episode of Babes with Books. This month we are talking about YA and what we would recommend you to read this summer.
YA is?
Young adult.
I only say because I said it to someone yesterday and they're like, "What's YA?"
Yeah, sorry, young adult.
those acronyms that we all use for
in our
teen. For teens.
So what is
pre-teen.
considered YA? Actually, that's actually a really good idea. Are we talking about youth, young adult?
And there's a new term, right?
Age called there? Yeah.
What's the new term?
New adult.
New adult.
New
okay.
adult.
And which one's older?
I did not know that.
So the new adult
is a little bit older, right?
So we have juvenile, which is kind of like preteen, 9 to 12-ish. And then youth is usually, 13 and up. That 13-year-old can go juvenile or youth, depending on where you're at. Of course, parents.
YA. 13 and up is YA.
Yeah. And then the new adult are those books that adults really like to read as well as adults like to read. It's kind of like
this is new
the
adult.
in-between age group.
And the reason why these age groups could matter for you, either as a reader or maybe as a parent especially, is that the content is going to change. So when you're looking at juvenile, there's not going to be any sort of racy content, I guess would be the word I come out with. And then as you go further up, drug references, violence, things like that. So think of it as like a rating of as a movie. So we have juvenile, young adult, new adult. And it's not bad for your kids to read it or for you to read it depending on your ages. It's just the content that you're going to find within is going to be different.
Another fun fact too, difference between juvenile and young adult. Juvenile books tend to be the heroes or the heroines. Of course, they're the same age as the people that are reading them. They go out on an adventure and then they come home at the end.
Yeah.
Whereas young adult books, they go out on an adventure and that usually they don't go home at the end. They go out into the world at the end.
I mean, I'm totally getting distracted, but that's my bridge to Terabithia stand out in juvenile literature, right? Because the ending is a little bit changed. But yes, if you're looking for a happy ending, pick up a juvenile book. They're a good, you have a good story arc, right? Like up and around and down to that
usually
conclusion.
Happily ever after, lessons learned, they go home at the end and everything's good. Whereas young adult can
some pretty
have
crazy events have happened and they've had to become adult,
stronger and move out into the world.
We should mention that grammar and language is going to be different, of course, in all of them as well. They are going to be, your editors and your publishing houses are going to be paying attention to those reading levels as well. So if you're an adult and you're picking up any of these categories, or especially YA, as we're kind of talking about today, which is also, we're talking about new adult a bit too today, then, you have to expect that reading level is going to be a bit different. But go into that with an open mind, because these stories, they can be told really beautifully, actually. These authors are very accomplished. To write in a book that can entrance a child is pretty cool thing to do, actually. I think it's a really neat genre, and I think it's a pretty important genre.
Great. So what did you guys read this month? What are we recommending?
What did you read, Shauna?
I went for a classic called Ender's Game. By Orson Scott Card, and some books I'm going to talk about today are kind of books that have been made into movies, and so when you're movie watching this summer, maybe, and it's kind of funny that one of the grad presents that I gave to my daughter and I gave to one of our close friends for graduation was read the book, watch the movie.
Okay.
So it was a chapters card and a movie card together, which is kind of cool. So a lot of people. There's a ton of books out there that have been made into movies, so it's kind of a fun thing. So I have not seen the whole thing, the whole movie of Ender's Game. I've only seen bits and pieces, but now I want to watch it again.
I recently watched it with my kids, and they really, really liked it.
Yeah, I'm... are we going to talk about the books right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell us what you think.
Well, the biggest thing about this book and why I liked it, and it's similar to the whole kind of style of books like The Hunger Games, where these teens are thrust into an adult type world where they are forced by adults to do things that are not kids, right? Like The Maze Runner is a similar sort of thing, right? And and so where these adults are trying to control them with all these rules and stipulations, and the kids just do what's unexpected and do something different because they they need to. And so it's interesting, the lessons that are being learned by the young adults in these books. That was kind of fun and makes me question what are going through our kids' heads, right? And
yes, what is going through our kids' heads?
Yeah. So
what is? I don't know.
What
So
are
actually,
they
it's
thinking?
really interesting that you bring that up, because that's one thing that I find in young adult fiction nowadays that almost bothers me a little bit. So when you look at books like the Divergent series or even the Hunger Games,
well, the same things.
where are the adults? Like, it's like there's
that's a big thing.
There's these all kinds of problems with the world, and everyone is going wrong, and it's the youth's job to save the day. And I'm like,
it's the adults screwing it up.
But
those are usually cast in those whoa, that was fun. The post-apocalyptic worlds.
Yeah.
That's where you'll actually see that fiction happen a little bit more without the adults.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the other, if you look at a more traditional genre, you are going to have parents. And you're often going to have a relationship with a parent that's struggling, or something happening with the parents that's causing some situations. So I do think that's particular to that subgenre of YA.
There's just a lot, it seems, nowadays where the world needs to be saved, and it's always saved by young adults. So,
But being the parent of those kids' age, the teens, the late teens, they do have a lot of, and being working in a school and stuff, they do have a lot of fears and stuff that we are screwing it up for them, right?
If you're reading a YA book too, and you are of that age, which is who they are actually publishing it for, they don't want to read about the adults necessarily.
Yeah, no.
So even though maybe they are saving the world, there's some adults saving the world over there, but you're just reading the story of the YA of the teens saving the world. Yeah. So yes, I think
and that's
it's
a good way to think about it, is that maybe there's some adults doing some pieces of it over here.
Yeah,
but we're just reading about this one small part of the story. So.
Yeah, so I think that might be the way to look at it. Again, like I said at the beginning, these YA books, you have to come in with them as an adult with that mindset that's who they're written for. Yeah. That's who the audience actually is. But it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. You can't enjoy that kind of craftsmanship of the authors.
So what is Ender's Game all about?
It's about a world where they are preparing to fight these buggers, they call them, these aliens who almost destroyed them years and years prior.
It was a dirty word when I was a kid. My
was,
parents got
it
so
was,
mad at me. So when this was written, it was probably like,
funny. I remember my grandma, that's what she would call us.
Yeah.
When we were being bad. You little bugger. Hooligans.
Such bad language.
Hooligans. Hoodlums.
Goodness.
Hoodlums is good too.
Anyways. Yeah, so they're preparing these kids. He's 6 years old when he's recruited into this game. And they have to learn to become soldiers and doing terrible things to each other and stuff, similar to the Hunger Games, where they're having to battle and kill each other and in the game, kind of, and also outside of it, but in preparation. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, there's some stuff going on. The adults are up to something. There's some secrets happening, and he's separated from his family, and there's just a lot of
and that's angst. This one too. The adults are doing something in this book. They're not just not present.
Yeah.
So that's
they're doing something.
Okay.
In the background.
And thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways.
I'm really enjoying it. It's a pretty quick read for me, but I'm still not quite done. But anyway, I know the story. But it's really descriptive and really a deep character kind of story, which
there's a lot of action in it as well, right? Action. So if you're
they do a good job of depicting the battles in the in the game. So
it's got a little bit of everything. Yeah. I think that J.K. Rowling did a really good job of that as well, putting all of the different aspects in there. Hunger Games is another really good one, which is why they're so popular, because they kind of please all different types of readers.
Interesting. So, my daughter did not like it when she read it. Okay, when she was that age.
Okay,
she read it for school, but.
Did she say why? Is it just
books
the
that
genre?
you read for school are often
It was the genre.
I think
she's not a fan of this genre at all.
And a lot of kids do not come out of school thinking, "Oh, I really enjoyed that book that you had to read for English."
Yeah. Mainly because you were forced.
It's that idea. It's that idea that you have to read this.
To pick it.
And she's not a sci-fi book fan. She's like me. She likes to read character novels. Hunger Games she liked, but
That's a character novel, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And a female heroine.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, you guys.
What'd you guys read? Or what'd you read, Maya?
What did I read? Okay, so I actually had a hard time choosing. I will say, so I started working with books. I started working at a bookstore when I was a teenager. So I think, and when you're working, you kind of have to, you read a lot because people are always asking you, and you start getting into it and that sort of thing. So I think my kind of preoccupation with YA started then, and I still read quite a bit of it, actually, probably a few a month, 2 or 3 a month. So I had a hard time choosing. There's some really big ones out there right now that I've read, but I went and I kind of tried to pick something a little bit different. So there's, I found 3 books that are coming out soon with really good reviews on actually all of them, and they are of a sort of mystery, murder mystery, thriller, suspense kind of subgenre. And I went with that because I think a lot of people think of YA right now as that post-apocalyptic world that really emerged with, well, a different world maybe, something different. It started emerging with Twilight, and then with Hunger Games, and then there was Divergent series, and there is Maze Runner.
They go in
those big
kind
ones.
of theme pods,
Yeah,
right?
and that's really not, that's all that's out there.
Yeah.
Actually, there's all, and then romance has always been a big one, those romancy type ones. When I was working at the bookstore, there was this series by Lurleen McDaniels, and teens clamored for them, and they were all about teens with like illnesses that they were dying from, and then a love story combined with them. And I was like, what are these books? These are not good books.
The Sarah Dessen ones too. I'm not sure what's all going on.
Yeah, those are all romancy too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the titles that I have are Now You See Her by Lisa Leighton, and it's out in June 26th. And The Disappearance of Sloane Sullivan, due out May 29th. I guess that was a couple days ago. And then I flipped through those, took a look at them, and they looked pretty interesting. And then I got through one full one. It is by Lauren Oliver. She's quite well known. She has read a few books, and she's had a few turned into movies. So what we were talking about there. And this one is called Broken Things, and it is about 3 young girls. And 5 years ago, one of these 3 teenage girls, and they were all best friends, is murdered. And her 2 best friends are accused of murder, and they don't end up charged because of things that happen within, like,
it's not too often you have murder as a theme in a YA, so
no, and actually quite violently murdered.
Wow.
So, and it's happened when the book opens. This is set 5 years later. There is some backtracking, but it's yeah, and it talks, so in all of these 3 girls have some problems now, and they had problems then. They were not the popular girls. They were not the it girls in high school. They banded together because of that, and then continue on this journey together and kind of deal with these problems together through a fictional world that they create from a book that they've all read. Yeah. And so then this book tells this story of this girl who was murdered and these young girls who are 5 years later still reeling with this accusation, and they seek to find the truth and what has actually happened to their friend Summer. Yeah, definitely a bit of a thriller, a little bit dark for sure. A lot of empathy for these characters, and a lot of, I think you can see yourself in bits and pieces of all of them, that trying to keep your face up for society or hiding in different ways, whether through one girl deals with it through addiction, another girl just stops doing all of her extracurriculars. So I thought it was a really interesting way to...
Great idea for the author to use 3 different characters as well, because then that way youth like to see themselves in the characters that they're reading about. So at least if you do it through 3 different characters, then you can see bits and, like you said, bits and pieces of yourself in them, right?
And I would say too, even though there's 3 main girl characters, but they actually do bring in an extra 3 supporting characters, and 2 of them are male. So in that way, which I don't like to say, like, don't read this book because it's got a female protagonist, but I do think that even as an adult, I tend to stray towards books with a protagonist that has those same issues that I am facing in my life. And sometimes that is gender issues. So I don't think that this book is unreadable for a person who tends towards that.
Sounds like that one would definitely be in the new adult category as well. Good for
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the murder, like, they talk about what happens. You don't have to go through like the full on, like it's happened. There is no sex. There's no there is a bit of romance, but not that. And I think that you could go like 15 and up, maybe. Yeah, definitely not that lower end of the YA, but yeah, I would be heading into that new adult area. So I would recommend it. It was good. I liked the characters. The suspense was there. It kept me going. I had an idea of who it was. You know that book where you're like, oh, maybe it could be. I think that's who, but you still have to keep reading.
Yeah.
You don't actually know.
Yeah, sure.
So I like that. So I would recommend it. Like I said, that one is not due out till October, so it's a bit of a wait for you. But if you like the idea of a suspenseful read in YA, pick up The Disappearance of Sloane Sullivan, because that one also was looking interesting. And that's thrillers are always good beach reads, right? You need something to keep you reading on those lazy days of summer, and I think a suspense one is a good one to go for. How about you?
Well, I read Turtles All the Way Down by John Green.
Celebrity.
Yeah, John Green is one of my favorite people in the world.
He's pretty cool.
His
really brother's pretty cool too.
I love the Vlogbrothers, and so they're on YouTube. If you haven't seen them,
The
then
Vlogbrothers.
you need to see
right.
them. Anyway, he's written quite a few books, and they often tackle fairly deep issues. This one is fittingly about mental health, which is interesting because I didn't really know that when I picked it up, and May was Mental Health Month, so I was reading a lot of mental health stuff this month. It was really well done, as expected for John Green. But basically it follows the story of this young girl who just struggles drastically with anxiety issues. She constantly worries about germs and infection and thinks she has stuff all the time. And she tries to kind of go through life and have these friends, and she has fairly supportive friends, but of course when you're constantly worried about yourself, you tend to be fairly narcissistic, and so relationships are hard for her. Her father has passed away, and it kind of starts with this disappearance of this friend who she met at SAD camp, as she calls it. His father disappears, and so there's this reward, and so the story kind of follows loosely them looking for this man who's disappeared. Which is really just a vessel, I think, for the rest of her character development throughout the whole thing, and her coming to the realization. And it gets so bad at one point that she's even drinking hand sanitizer. She ends up falling in love with this man, or this young boy. They are kissing one time, and then she has this voice in her head that's constantly, now his saliva is inside you, and didn't you know that, like, now you'll never get rid of that, and so then she has to excuse herself and go to the bathroom, and the voice in her head tells her to drink this hand sanitizer. So that's, the depth of struggle that she's going through. Really good. I really enjoyed it. The title, Turtles All the Way Down, is based on a scientific premise that I've tried to understand, but the basics is, and the reason I bring it up is because for her, the realization, it's basically based on this infinite premise of this person believes that the earth is flat on the back of a turtle, and when questioned about it, each turtle is on the back of another turtle, and the person asked, well, what's the last turtle standing on? Like, what's the bottom? And the response was, well, it's turtles all the way down, so infinitely. And to her, that was like, that makes sense in explaining what I'm going through, because to her, the voices in her head, there was no like explanation, this explains this logically. It was just, she was inside her head, and she couldn't get out infinitely. So I thought that was kind of an interesting premise.
Yeah, I like that. I don't really love John Green's writing.
No.
I'd be interested to see this one because it's gotten really good reviews. I've seen it, and for those, John Green is Fault of Our Stars, Paper Towns, Looking for Alaska is currently being filmed or out this summer or something like that too. I really love like him and his brother's vlogs. I've used his YouTube videos lots on history and stuff like that. But
yeah, I think he has a way of bringing up issues that teens
worry about
as well
or
as
struggle with. Yeah.
there's maybe not a lot of teens dealing with it.
Yeah,
So
I like the sounds of this
writes
one a
about
lot.
it.
Yeah.
So he picks those ones that there are teens dealing with it and writes for them.
Yeah, I like the sounds of this one. So
Yeah.
I'm intrigued actually.
Yeah.
Do you usually pick up YA? Is it something that you read?
I do enjoy YA. I don't think I read as much of it as you do, like every month or anything like that.
No.
But I do enjoy YA fiction and will pick it up. Again, I'm getting a little bit disenchanted by, like, a lot of times something will be really big and then everyone will write it.
Yeah.
But when I do read YA, I do like, I see some of the ones on the table here. Inkheart was great. I really like Cinder, which was kind of a retelling of Cinderella. Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, another great one. So yeah,
There's some good ones out there. So
one thing I wanted to mention today that I've been finding really rewarding over the past few months is we think that middle schoolers don't want to read with adults anymore. And something I've been doing is with one of my good friends' young men is actually sitting there and reading with him. Once a week we read together. So we read The Golden Compass. We're reading the next one, which is called, my brain just went blank.
Amber Spyglass.
Yes.
Subtle Knife.
What?
Is the Amber Spyglass the second one? And then Subtle Knife is the third one.
Subtle Knife isn't one of them. Golden Compass, Amber
Golden
Spyglass.
Compass. Yeah, the spy. No, it's a Subtle Knife. Subtle Knife.
Subtle
Sorry.
Knife.
Yeah.
That is not what
Subtle
I
Knife
heard.
is the second one.
I was like, oh yeah, it is.
Sudden Life, and I'm like,
Anyway, so
Sudden
we're
Life
reading
is
that
not how
one,
that
and
is.
we have plans to read Inkheart together. And the funny thing is,
How do you
that
read together? Do you each read a copy
I read
or
to
do you
him,
read out
and
loud?
he just listens.
Okay.
So, and it's kind of funny that as often as she can, depending if she's working, my 18-year-old daughter comes with me
And listens?
and listens.
Yeah.
It's just proof that people always love being read to.
Yes.
So don't stop reading to your child just because they hit middle school.
If you have a child who is a reluctant reader as well, really try out audiobooks. Find them. There's some
Mhm.
really great services. Chances are your
And
library
amazing
has a
voices
service,
and stuff.
or you can buy them off audiobooks.com, which is a sub thing of Amazon. Audiobooks are a great way to bring someone into that world of reading. Or if they are just not quite there to read the whole book, I highly recommend them for people.
Especially
I
big
think they're great.
descriptive books like Inkheart and
Yeah.
Golden Compass is, right? And maybe that's something you could try this summer is, sitting out on
Read
the deck
aloud.
and
Yeah.
having just,
I follow someone
for
on
half
social
an hour,
media. It's
right?
called Read Aloud Revival, and that's actually
Yeah.
what it's about.
Yeah.
Is reading aloud as a group. I read aloud. My kids are younger, so we're not at YA, but we're reading
Wives
Charlotte's
like
Web.
being read to as well.
definitely.
For all you husbands that are watching.
Definitely.
I don't want to sound lame, but we have actually done that. Yeah, we read Narnia. So
There you go.
yeah,
Narnia,
reading
speaking
is
of, that's another wonderful series to read.
And there's a book out there for you if you are not reading, either as an adult or as a YA. There's a book out there for you, and as an adult, a YA is a good one to start with. They're shorter, they're
Easy
quick
to
and
read.
easy.
Yep.
The level of reading is a little bit lower than say an adult book, so
I
you're
really
not
do
going to
think
feel
that's
as
why the new
intimidated.
adult section was
huge.
created and why it's so popular.
I think it was also created because there was a lot of people reading YA, and they were kind of
Feeling like, oh, I'm reading.
I can't read this.
Yeah.
I can't read this, right? So to give it, instead of like young adult, to say like just bring it up that notch is like, okay, this is acceptable.
Well, and let's
then.
face it, we're all busy, right? So it's
Yeah.
not even that I need a lower reading level. And there's no stigma around it. It's just we're all busy. These ones are often a little bit faster reads, still really good stories, really good themes.
Well, and that's actually why I think I tend to stray to them, because they're a faster read for me, and I like worlds. I like to get into a world and enjoy it and that story. And when I'm reading a book, like I'm in it. I can't be talked to. And so for me to be able to read one in 3 days gives me more of an opportunity to really just explore another world that much faster, right? Yeah. I think that's part of it. Also, I mean, they suck me into. I'm like in the middle of like 8 series, right?
They often have lots of series books, right?
There's this
So
author,
that's great.
Sarah J. Maas. She's on the table here, and she has like 7 books in one series and 4 in another. And I enjoy them, but I'm like, please just stop so that I can not have that commitment hanging over my head.
Please be finished.
Please, because the commitment that is required for these, like, it's so overwhelming.
Often publishers will publish in 3s. Like, it's usually a trilogy is the most popular thing that comes out. So to find a series that's longer is less than. But
yeah,
clearly you found it. What?
I know. I don't think it was meant to be. I think she was
Did
that
it to
popular. So I know. This is like classic fantasy Sarah J. Maas. So she's more like George R. R. Martin in the YA world.
That's great.
So she kind of
nice to get people into that classic fantasy.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we're out of time. What are we doing next month, guys?
Well, next month
woo-hoo!
we're getting into the sizzling world of.
It's hot out, so we're gonna find some hot books for you to
summer
read.
nights. I have chosen a D.H. Lawrence title. I'll let you guess which one it is. Well, Lady Chatterley's Lover, of course. I read it when I was in my 20s. Gonna read it again. It's a classic. But you guys are going.
I don't know.
So
what different? You don't know.
You'll have to come next month to find out what we're gonna read.
Yeah, but we're gonna find something hot for you to read.
Yeah,
and hopefully something hot and enjoyable, not hot and make you want to.
Yes.
Slash your eyes out.
We're gonna recommend. There's a lot of so erotic fiction. There's a lot of erotic young adult erotic.
Sorry.
No.
So yeah, we didn't plan that very well, but
for all the Steves watching this right now,
all those Steves watching, that's okay. You need to know this stuff.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go. Often it's really hard to find good erotic fiction, so we're gonna hopefully find some good stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna try and find something that isn't like the free porn on the internet. We're gonna look for the paid for stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, on that note, I hope that you're having a wonderful.
I always just say what I mean.
And we'll see you next time.
Later.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.